All right, everybody. Welcome back to the PRPL Podcast. This is your host, Austin Izard. We're back here again reviewing The Last of Us Recap and Review Season 2, Episode 3. Joining me in the booth today, back in town, is Griffin. Welcome back.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Appreciate you having me on, Austin.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we also have another, he's a recurring guest now. At this point, I think he's solidified himself in the role. We can see that and that he now has his own boom arm. He's not leaning forward. We don't need to hurt this old man's back any more than it already is hurting. So we got Mike, a mic stand.
Hey,
welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Oz. Hey, it's nice to not be hunched over, guys.
Well, that's good. Well, we got some good things going here. We're looking forward to it. It's a good energy in here. We're having a lot of fun doing this. We got us all back in the booth. But here we are again, back at The Last of Us. This episode titled The Path. And this is, this is what's going on here. The path forward. How do we proceed now that Joel is no longer a part of the series in the present timeline and what's going on here? So another little thing with the title, they've been incorporating songs. This whole series is, I think it has a good emphasis on music. They're purposeful in their choices of titles, and it's kind of these little Easter eggs with the way they do things like that. But the song that played at the end of season 1, that was titled The Path.
Oh.
And also this song plays in the video game On the Way to Seattle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the path plays.
Drawing it all together.
Yep, exactly. So how do we proceed now? How do we go forward? Just looking back on our last episode and listening back to it and then watching this episode, I really think there were a ton of things that we were discussing and talking about that did kind of have a payoff to them. Mm-hmm. We were able to predict a good amount of things. So our Kreskin moments, we had quite a few of those throughout that last episode. So this was a good one. It obviously a bit tempered in terms of,
similar to that first episode. I feel like kind of, you started off with a little bit of that, I guess, some exposition there, right? Establishing things. We had the big explosiveness of the second, and then the third's kind of, we're going in waves here. We have some dynamics.
Yeah, it's one to come back from too. It's going to take a second to catch our breath, and I think this episode does do a good job of it as a whole. And we're establishing what's to come. This is what the series looks like going forward. The path ahead.
The path ahead. Hey, there it is.
Exactly. I don't know if you guys noticed it, and I don't know how online you are and how much you're seeing in regards to like the Last of Us content on social media in any kind of form.
I pretty well avoid it, honestly, just because, I'm trying to have a very, I'm trying to minimize my filters with things.
Yeah, and it's something as, the host, I feel like I probably should be a little more in tune than like, obviously from you, I think it's fun to have that experience where I don't want to say tainted, but it's like there are things that I don't need them to tell me everything. And I'm catching a lot of these things. But anyways, what I'm getting at is in this intro scene where at the end of it, the music plays and then we see the two figures come out of the fungus. This episode, there was only one. I don't know if you guys caught that in the intro credit. So
I think now that you mention it, I actually did just see that when we watched.
Yeah.
And that was interesting.
Yeah. So that was something that,
ouch.
You kind of got to pay attention in those. I'm the guy in HBO series. Like if I'm watching a weekly one, I really do enjoy to watch the intro, the credits and hear the music just because it kind of gets the tone set right. And HBO is, I think they've always they've put time and effort into their intros typically. Like there's reason and there's purpose behind the things they do. And, as we're seeing there's some payoffs like that sometimes.
Did you really notice that or did you see that?
No, I was paying attention. I kind of questioned it because.
You believe that, Dad?
I know exactly. I'm not
sure about that one, Griff.
What was that thing? Wasn't there like a bit where like LeBron was doing that shit a while back where he was just like telling the future or something? He was saying something is truth, or he was saying he did something and saying that he predicted it.
Oh,
did he really do that? Did he really predict that?
You just look at it a little closer. You're like, who knows?
No, but I was looking out for it. I'm sorry. I mean, well,
Very good, Austin.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Pat me on the back for
I
that
was
one.
about to say.
Well,
Please.
looks like you're going to pat yourself. So.
Hey, now. Got that taken care of already. All right, so let's get back into the recap. We're going to get on into this here. The first scene, the first thing that we see and what we kind of expect is, the aftermath of Jackson. How are they picking up the pieces here? So when we immediately jump into it, I think this is the right after it happened. Mm-hmm. So we see the infected that are burnt out front. And then we have that scene where they're in the morgue is what we want to call it. And this was a really good scene. And I think it's the first of a few scenes in this episode that Tommy does some really good things. You like what you're getting from him, but it's a strong scene. Joel is in the morgue. Yeah. Tommy walks in. I guess there was a lady tending to them, and he kind of takes over cleaning off his brother, which I think there's a lot of symbolism in that too. And just the brotherhood, taking care of someone. It's like being a pallbearer kind of thing. There's just that last service and act you're doing for them, even though that they're gone.
Yeah. Well, and he's the only one to do it too. Cause let's think, I mean, Ellie wasn't going to be doing that. That was,
she's in the hospital.
Like you said, I think, and you're right, Oz, because we did, I don't know if we exactly predicted this, but we mentioned it last episode. We said, hey, Tommy's going to be getting a lot of clock now. I think that his kind of role in this series just amped up, and we definitely saw that today.
Yep.
In this third episode.
You kind of see it in his posture when he walks in. He just seems like, seems a little bit more stout. Just seems like, hey, I'm a leader now. And then you see him sit down and, I kind of took that as, back in the Egyptian times, they would wash the bodies. Mm-hmm. And that's what it seemed like to me, was like he's a leader. I don't want to call it king. That's going a little far fetched, but wiping him down was a symbol of just respect to Joel.
Yeah, there's definitely some kind of meaning in that act of service that you're doing for them.
Well, so maybe you guys know a little bit more than I do, because obviously very, very intense scene, very heartfelt. Nothing is said as he walks into that room and trades places with the lady who was, kind of going through with that. Nothing said at all. The only words, I believe, were "Give my love to." Was it Sarah?
Give my love to
Give Sarah my love. And this is another thing we're going to see throughout this episode is the use of devices. Especially being Joel's things left behind. These. You get what I'm saying here? So his watch, right?
His watch. Okay.
This watch is one of these things, but the things that the dead leave behind, because one day they're gone, one day they're there, one day they're gone, and they leave these things behind. This watch is especially symbolic because this watch was given to Joel by Sarah initially, at the very beginning. So that's why he always wore this watch, even though it's been broken, beaten up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this watch was given to him by Sarah. So I see him looking at it and, call me out on this again and say, hey, was he really thinking this? But it was like, is he going to bring up Sarah in some regard, because Joel is dead now, and this is this daughter that has been gone for 20 years. So
wow.
I thought that was, I'm going to go ahead and say the best quote of maybe the whole entire episode. And there's a lot of really good quotes in this episode.
There are a lot of good quotes.
Like strong ones that, just these almost one-liners that are really impactful and just hit.
Well, let's do this, Dad. Have you written any of these down? Let's see if you got a little quote to pull out with us talking about it.
Griffin, and Austin pointed that out. There's several that, I was kind of saving that for the end because I've got a few.
Fine.
But Austin, you nailed it with the watch. You talk about that. The watch was Sarah had it fixed where the glass was fixed on there, and now you see the glass is broken with the hole in the glass. I mean, that symbolizes he's no longer here.
Yeah, okay? It was
it's a symbol.
What was it? So was it? I think it was Joel's maybe birthday around the time when the outbreak happened. Yeah. So that's when he got that watch back, and then that day everything obviously ended up losing Sarah. Anyways, Sarah's gone. In this moment where Tommy's looking at his watch, he thinks to Sarah, and now that they're both kind of reunited. So I think that was really powerful, of course, obviously, but just really beautiful. It was a really good scene, and just one line, and you got the picture, and it hit home
for sure.
Yeah, and then you see Tommy with the tear running down his eyes, after he said, give my love to Sarah. So, you see that softer side of Tommy because, again, you're not going to see that a whole lot. He's going to get tougher and tougher, I feel.
We jump on over to seeing Ellie in the hospital. We reunite with her, and obviously she's still in a bad way here.
Oh, yeah.
I guess she was probably in some kind of coma maybe for a little bit. I don't know how long it's been since the actual day of it. Regardless, she wakes up and she's still there. She's still in the lodge. And Bella Ramsey does a really good job of these like guttural, like grieving noises and just noises in general. It's something that's it's just.
No, well,
it was a blood curdling scream.
Come on. It's hard to listen to.
It's almost funny. It's almost funny that you say that because in the moment as we were watching, I can kind of. Sometimes it just so happens that I'm thinking a little bit meta with it. I'm like, damn, that would be hard to act. That'd be really difficult as an actor.
That was the point. I was, just getting to there. I'm putting myself in her spot. It's like, that's you're releasing, you're putting that out. Like that's not reserved in any kind of way. That is just guttural.
It's an intense scene. I mean, her eyes when she opens up, she's almost cross-eyed.
And she had a tear. She had a tear rolling down her cheek as well. I noticed.
So this just shows us that this isn't going to be an easy return for Ellie. This trauma that she is,
and it was real. I think that was kind of a moment where she's having to accept, or just it's all coming back to her. Like you said, she's still there. Mm-hmm. And it actually did happen.
Yeah, she's reliving the moment, and it's just like I said, the blood curdling scream. Obviously,
she hasn't gotten back. She hadn't gotten back to reality yet.
No.
Mm-mm.
All right, so 3 months later, we're picking up at Jackson, and that's kind of gives you the scale of what this kind of rebuilding phase looked like.
Yeah.
Like they're still building. This is 3 months later, and they're still building, burying dead, well, not burying dead. I think that's been done, but they're still rebuilding. You see them it cuts to the town and they're still taking care of things. There's a lot of symbolism in this scene itself too, you have Tommy, Tommy's, he's going to be stepping up his role too here.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, Tommy needs some help.
Oh yeah.
Tommy's an aging man. He's got a family he's got to tend to as well. And this is where Jesse, this is one of those kind of takes that we had last episode. He's going to have to step his game up.
For sure.
We heard that thing about him, you're going to run this town someday. We really kind of hit that point home. And this is the first place where we kind of see it in a symbolic way. It's not expressed verbally in this scene, but, with Tommy calling in Jesse to hammer that post in. He's a big dude, you said that. He needs his physical help in that moment to help rebuild the town. But I think there's more meaning behind that scene, and you're seeing that Jesse's going to step up and be a piece of rebuilding this town, literally, and in the political sense, I guess you could say.
Kind of the old bull, new bull. It's kind of what I wrote down.
Something else to even keep in mind that maybe isn't as explicitly shown, with how many people that would have died during that breach. I mean, that had to have been some of the best men they had, some of the best fighters and warriors that they would have had. So the rebuilding phase, like you said, it really is important that you're finding those people who are going to fill the roles.
This theme of someone needing to step up is kind of littered throughout this episode because there's holes there. There's shoes to fill.
Early theme appearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're already jumping into it.
Yeah, I mean, touch on them throughout. We'll get back to them, of course. And this is also Ellie's release day. So 3 months down the line, 3 months later.
I'll say this. That kind of surprised me a little bit. Like, did she really need 3 months of recovery time here, guys? Because, I mean, what even happened to her? She got, kicked in the head. Okay. Well, I mean, what happened to her in the cabin that would necessitate a 3-month recovery?
Well,
Am I being an asshole?
I'm thinking, we see where Catherine O'Hara, Gail picks up with her. I think she's been talking with her. I think a lot of it's been the mental element of it. I think I think.
So you think that they had been
like psych eval?
I didn't see that. Truthfully, when I was watching, I thought that was the first time she was speaking with Gale. You think that had been recurring?
Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely.
I think she wasn't passing the test like Red from Shawshank. It's like, do you feel that
maybe I'm an idiot? That was not at all.
I feel like you've been reformed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't think she has.
No. So she's getting out here. Gale's back, so we get to see this kind of continuation of Gale and the way they use her. And I guess she's just going to have these deep, honest conversations with every character. I guess it's a good way to kind of get those feelings out on the table and kind of see them, I guess, as the viewer and what they're doing.
Well, and you said it in the first episode. I mean, I think Gale's character is a really fun one. I enjoy her character.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think she does allow for a lot of those, I guess, moments where you are hearing those true feelings, kind of getting down to the source.
And we begin to recognize in this episode, I think, a bit more like how unput together Gale is.
Austin, absolutely. I mean, you'll hear later on, she talks about it. He says, well, who takes care of you? And then she says, alcohol and weed,
Yeah.
So
she's
got some
mess.
issues herself.
Yeah.
Her disaster.
Yeah. Well, she has no qualms discussing it either. That's what I like. She's a pretty open book.
And that probably keeps her healthy in some kind of way. But we get that payoff of the porch scene. We kind of hear Ellie's perspective, or the fact that they didn't speak. We had discussed maybe they did speak in that later at that point. I don't.
Do you believe that? Because I mean, obviously, there's a conversation about Ellie being a liar, and I almost don't even know if I really believe that that's the case, that they didn't speak.
Very plausible. If they don't, I think that does still contribute to, I guess, maybe her guilt in some way, even though she appears to be handling it, in a positive manner. She at least can say the words, but does she feel that way? I don't think so. But I did go back and look. That guitar did end up in her room when Joel, I guess when Ellie woke up this previous episode.
Yeah.
So Joel had at some point taken the guitar back to her after he fixed the strings. Mm-hmm. He did take it back. Maybe they didn't have a conversation. Maybe that was just showing, Joel still being on his shit and showing that he loved her. But basically, they haven't talked. They talked about the Joel wronged you. So are we going to continue to see that? But I guess not, because Ellie's gone now. I was thinking maybe they might try to hammer
Ellie will probably be thinking that. Maybe she brings it up to Dina and she goes, hey, Gale said this. And like, what do you think that? She's going to put those pieces together for sure. If she hasn't already, I feel like we already discussed that maybe she knows something.
No, she knows, but is she ever going to tell anyone else?
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Then we get to the very powerful scene of Ellie being released and Ellie heading home. And this is a really, like the way this scene, you end up in this scene, the thought of losing someone and returning to an empty home. Like that is pretty rough. You see the memorials all out front. So I think that's another way to depict, and we this is just another thing that we see throughout the scene, is like the impact of Joel specifically being gone. We feel him and his impact. He's talked about and discussed a lot. He was a prominent figure in this world, in this show and in their lives. But Ellie gets home. We see all the memorials out front. She'd been living in the garage, so that's something to consider. So when she goes back into her bedroom, her bed's not there. She'd been living into the garage. We found that out or heard that earlier in the season. So how much time was she spending with Joel at all? So, she didn't know what he was really up to in a lot of ways. It seems like they're pretty disconnected.
We see a lot of regret in that scene. I know that the first time I watched it was very emotional for me. I thought that it had a very good pacing, and I was just putting myself on her shoes. I think when she's looking in that bedroom, she's going, damn, I really did him wrong, didn't I? Like, look at this. Like, I don't know. It just, it was just kind of hard for me knowing where maybe his head was. Cause I remember in the first episode, we're hearing Joel say, I should have never let her do that.
Mm-hmm.
Should have never let her move to the garage.
Yeah.
I'm trying all these things. I think that you just saw obviously a lot of kind of remorse.
And guys, the reason he went to see Gail in the first place was because of all of this going on with Ellie. Is he wanted Ellie, like, why does she want to be in the garage and not, hang out with me at all? And it was obvious he was really upset at the time. That's why he went to see her. You all agree with that?
I'd say so. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I think I think you're right. I mean, Gail said. She said, hey, we keep talking about the same damn thing here. So I think you're exactly right. You'd have to be, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. He was, again, it's no different than any other teenager. And that's what he was dealing with. It's like, hey, you see them kind of going off on their own. They don't really want your advice. They don't care about your advice. And it does hurt as a parent. So kind of understand where Joel was at.
Well, and I'll say this too. I've just kind of taken it in this direction. I know that I said the last episode, hey, I think that we're going to see Ellie kind of grown up now, and I don't think we're going to see any more silliness. And I think I was very wrong about that because we're still getting a lot of childish behavior, I would say, from Ellie.
Yeah, this
episode, especially as she's leaving. A lot of sarcastic kind of goofiness, and it's like, oh my god!
Did you see her body language when she was walking in the house? She was slumped over. She looked like a kid.
Oh, well.
She did not look like, hey, I've got to grow up. I've got to step up. She looked like a broken down kid to me. And then when she turns, and Austin will hit this, I'm sure, but when she turns and sees his clothes, that's the trigger point for her grief.
Yeah. Well, that's funny you say that, Griffin. We'll get to that a little later, how you said you don't think she's, kind of grown up yet. She's still showing some of that.
Well, I mean, obviously it's more nuanced than that,
yep.
But just some of that, like, I kind of thought you would get a little bit more of a serious Ellie, but then we're seeing that scene with Gail and she's doing some of the same goofy tricks and whatever. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But also, I think that's partially just her personality.
Sure.
And I think that's a part of the conversation too.
Throughout this scene, I think the use of music is obviously really well done. Just sound itself, like she's not saying the word, you're hearing the floorboards creak. This empty home that she's returned to, what that means, and she's, just feeling all of this. This is when you get kicked in the nuts. It's like, oh, this is real. It sets in at that point in time, and she's walking through the house. Once again, the use of the devices, she sees the things that Joel has left behind, the revolver that we figure out she's going to, that's her revenge.
It's her weapon of choice.
Yes, that's what she'll be doing it with. That, and then the watch. But also, a very symbolic thing is, the coat that Joel wore, and, throughout the whole first season, pretty much on their journey. When she sees that in the closet, and, you got to imagine here, it's difficult when you're watching this, but like the smell of something like that too, she goes in close to it, puts it close to her face like that. Yeah. It hits home, and she's, just trying to, I don't know, just try to feel him again, give him a hug again.
She's finally, although briefly, she's finally able to let down some of these walls that obviously she's keeping up in those little evaluations.
Yeah. And as I said earlier, grief hits us in different ways. And, Austin, I like that, your point, when you say the smell, because, for any of us that have lost a loved one, it's one of the things you might say you don't, but you do. You go by and there's smells in the house.
Yep.
There's smells in the clothes. Something that I really wanted to point out here is just the difference in Joel's girls. And I'm switching gears here on Yas. But, we talk about the revolver. You mentioned that. But what about the watch? The two girls, Sarah, the watch that kind of symbolizes her, and now the revolver, that's what Ellie, if you watch her, just how she's cleaning it, how she is taking care of it.
She likes guns.
Looks at it. Oh, she definitely likes guns. And she, you said it, this is going to be the weapon of choice. So kind of wanted to throw that out there, the difference in let's call it the daughters.
Yeah. No doubt.
That's an interesting point, actually.
It is cool.
Yeah. And it's kind of indicative of, I guess you could say, the times too. It's funny how, just the different contexts in which I guess these relationships were. You know, one of these emblems is the watch, and then the others again.
Yeah, when the life was normal, and this time it's a world where you're just.
But I kind of thought she would at least, want to put the watch on, want to put it in her pocket. She's like, I'm good with that. She put it right back in the box and grabbed the pistol. It's like, I think we all know where her head is. Again, we're saying she's still not, let's call it grown, but she's still in her mind. It's like, I've got one focus and one focus only, because she has all her guns laid out later on. Her focus is in one direction. I don't care about food. I want my pistols. So we'll get into that.
I think she might be led by a potentially immature motive in a way, but I think in a lot of ways she is kind of stepping up to the plate, and we'll kind of, I guess there's one scene that we're going to kind of discuss.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of content. There's a lot to draw from. I think that's a good point.
Yeah. What's effective here is like how wrapped up you are in this scene where Ellie is here by herself walking through the house, that when you hear Dina call out, it is very jarring. And you kind of get a sense of that, that rush to hide your emotions, where how you could see yourself in that place. Like you don't want to have someone see you all torn up in that kind of way.
Well, and especially it's Ellie's way. Ellie's tough.
Right.
Ellie is not, I would say that she's the furthest thing from presenting as a very emotional person, at least in like the I'm going to be sad and crying way.
She's the badass.
She's the badass.
She didn't want Dina to see her.
Well, and you got to kind of feel, you have to feel for her too, because it's like this is her moment where she is finally alone, finally able to let out some of this grief, and then it just gets interrupted so quickly. It's like,
she's so obviously been kind of denying and deflecting.
Yeah.
Like I've got it all covered. I'm squared away. I'm healthy. That's what her and Gail get to. If everyone was as healthy as you, kind of thing. But obviously, it's a front there. Mm-hmm. But Dina is here with a cookie peace offering basket because she has been withholding info from Ellie. That being, she paid attention to what was going on. Like we were saying last episode, she was questioning, she was gathering clues in her time at the lodge, and throughout it. So she picked up on the names.
Yeah.
She knows they're the WLF. So we figure out this is who these people are. This is where they're supposed to be from some info that she had learned from Eugene over the years, the ghost of Eugene. That's 3 times now. We see it every episode.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Eugene's a very important dead character, obviously.
Nice.
Wonder if we do get anything more about that. Not to dive into that at all, but that'll be interesting to see if we get anything left of that. But she had initially told Ellie that she didn't learn anything useful. She obviously has, and now these are the people, and they got to kind of figure out what's the next move. And they take this. I guess one important element of this is you see, Dina goes through the names, she lists them off. And as she's listing them off, Ellie goes, "Who's the one with the braids?"
Yeah.
So we know who Ellie is concerned about, who she locked on.
And I'm sure you're going to get into this, but I think you have to mention where Ellie is at during this moment. Why does she have to bring the cookies? Because she knows that Ellie's about to be pissed off and saying, "Why the hell did you not tell me so we could get these people?"
Griff, she says, "I'm about to make you angry."
Yeah.
And this is a peace offering. And I thought it was kind of, it was kind of cute how she just kind of slid it over before she said it. Kind of like, I'm getting ready to make you very angry.
Yeah. And I think I skipped over this part because there's some good dialogue here and I have it underlined, but where Ellie is initially, upset with her, she is like, she's like, "Why wouldn't you tell me? Like, you didn't tell me," kind of thing. And Dina brake checks her and says, "If you know where someone's going, maybe wait till they're there." And also saying like, we buried people for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And just like we were recovering. And I guess Ellie was probably in the hospital in this time, so didn't do that stuff. So Dina's like, no, we weren't just going to run after them right away. Like, brake check. And also she has this really strong line that says, "I loved him too,"
Oh yeah.
And that's just one of those one-liners that I had mentioned before.
Yeah, it kind of stops the room. Well, and the thing is, she knew exactly where Ellie, where she was at. She literally mentions, "Hey, if I told you, I knew you were going to rip your damn whatever. You're going to rip all the stuff off yourself at the hospital and crawl on the damn ground to get where you wanted to go because you wanted to get to Abby that bad."
She wanted her to heal up. Because she knows she's going to do this.
Well, she knew it didn't make it obviously didn't make any sense. So that we needed this recovery time, like you said, the whole town. That we needed this so that we can actually approach it solidly. But I mean, I just think it really is kind of powerful just seeing where Ellie's at with all of this stuff and what really matters to her. And we see it later on too, not to jump ahead, but with Jesse saying, "Hey, you're angry right now. I need you to approach this from a little bit more of a place of reason."
Yeah, exactly. No one's going to vote for angry. But this is the Washington Liberation Front. They're going to be, Seattle. That's the place. That's where we're heading. And they put in this line where they say small enough for us to handle because, they haven't heard from them or heard about them in a while. And
that's what they're assuming.
Yeah. One of our tropes.
That's the assumption.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So we cut to them then telling Tommy about this news and what they're going to do. This is a place where it actually really differentiates from the video game. I think Tommy does go after him on a solo quest or something like that away. But this scene, I think, kind of indicates that Tommy will not be joining, that he has a place and a responsibility to the town and to his family is kind of what we're seeing.
You can see where his priorities are. And I don't think it's wrong. I think you kind of mentioned this just a moment ago, saying, "Hey, maybe Ellie's motivations are a little bit immature," and I think that's worth digging into. I think it's worth digging into because what I think you're saying is, hey, I mean, there's a million examples of this, and I think it's a big theme of this episode. But just this vengeance that we kind of just very basically instinctually want for this wrongdoing, is it really the right move?
Yeah.
And that's where you have that kind of ambiguity. But I don't know. I think we're seeing his more level-headed approach contrasted with where Ellie is at. And I think, almost subconsciously we're having to make a decision where we side on that or just, maybe the pros and cons.
And Griffin, Tommy, think about what he's dealt with. Ellie was in the hospital. So Tommy's burying individuals. And we saw the gravesite later on. There's numerous of their team that they've lost. And then you also, the grief factor. You saw him come in and he's wiping down his brother. I mean, that would have to be one of the hardest things in the world to do, to see your dead brother there. If you put yourself in those spots, you have to understand why Tommy's just a little bit more reserved than Ellie is.
Well, what did Ellie see? What did Ellie see that Tommy didn't see though?
Ellie saw that her dad basically gets stabbed in the back of the neck. So yes.
So I think that's a good point of what maybe defines.
I think that's a great point, Griff.
Yeah.
What's funny about that is that in the video game, Tommy was there and Dina wasn't. Tommy did see it in the video.
That's really interesting.
So that he does go after in the video game. So that's funny that you really you just hit right on.
There we go. You started that nice.
Wow. Hell yeah. Way to go, Mike. Give him a boom arm and then he just starts popping.
There we go.
Yeah. In this scene, Ellie once again comes with her, kind of her attitude. You feel the kind of wrath. She wants vengeance, and she's pressing on Tommy and telling him that Joel would be there. And once again, we get one of those break check lines where Tommy says, "And don't talk to me like I didn't know him. He was my brother."
Good. I like that break check line.
That was a great line, also.
Yeah, that's one of those other the lines throughout this episode. And what you're seeing there in those lines of dialogue, you immediately recognize their relationship, and you have to consider that. When Dina does it to her, it's like, she did love him too. So Ellie, maybe you aren't the only one who, is missing this guy. you feel this hole that it's left in a lot of people's lives. And Ellie, we get caught up in her story because she's a main character. The same way she's caught up in her own story, like she wants vengeance for herself. But guess what? There's other people that loved him, and you're not the only one who loved this guy. It's not just about you here.
Yeah, she definitely gets checked several times. From Dina, we saw that. And then Tommy, let's face it, if you're Ellie, you think that Tommy is right there with you. You think, hey, I've got an ace in the hole. This guy's going to be right with me. When I say, hey, let's go get him, let's leave for Seattle.
Yeah.
You think he's gonna jump to it too. So she was going in like, oh, this is a gimme. This is a layup. And then
Tommy's still there, like Tommy does back her. At the end of the day, he just says, if we're going to do this, it's going to the council. Yeah. And, you don't have a good feeling about this going to council.
But she does. She does ask him, though. She said, but you're on my side, right? Like, you're going to back me.
Yeah, and he does.
And guys, I don't want to jump into that now, but, later on we find out how many votes. I kind of want to pick your all's brains. Who do you think was the three?
Fair.
Because I really want to know that.
Yeah, we'll see. And Tommy says, if you want to go visit Joel.
Oh, yeah.
And she says on the way to Seattle. So she's going.
That's what I liked is I didn't notice that on the first viewing, but she does say when we're on the way to Seattle, she's going no matter what.
Yeah, and that's why you see Tommy with Gail later on, and he's saying there's no doubt she's going. He knows.
Oh yeah,
that's why she just told him right then and there, I'm going.
Yep. We then cut to this kind of one-off scene with the Seraphites. That's what this group is called. Obviously, they have some kind of. There's a weirdness to them. There's something about religious groups and any kind of
saying it pretty lightly.
Yeah, right. I mean, they got damn scars on their faces, like these cuts, and so there's something off with these guys. But I guess we're just kind of establishing one of these groups that's going to be in the mix in Seattle in this Pacific Northwest area. What play they have, we soon find out that there's some kind of feud between them and the Wolves, of course. Because as they're walking through this path, they have some kind of whistle system to alert them. And so they're on high guard, obviously, if they have these systems in place, and you have to be in this very dangerous world where, like we've said before, there's not a lot of laws, the morality scale and that it's kill or be kill in a lot of ways. In a lot of
and I think another thing, like you said, it's establishing that group is probably going to show up again. I think that would have to be the case, but also I think it's just kind of showing this, post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah, and the way groups emerge. Yeah, and especially like religious groups, as you would be searching for some kind of answer. So these new prophets who was alive.
Did we know who this prophet was?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so? I didn't know if that was like something from the first season that maybe.
I kept thinking maybe I missed something. So. I had that underlined to ask you guys. I kept posting it as the prophets is what I kept calling them. Prophets. And I was really interested to know, and I'm very curious about what's the symbolism of from your mouth all the way.
It's like the Joker scars.
Yeah, it's a joke. Yeah, there you go.
I don't know. I think it's just probably.
I think it just wants to show you they're pretty.
Is that like a tribal thing?
They're just weird cats.
Yeah.
Okay. Exactly. I think that's just kind of was what it was. And these religious groups, there's always some kind of hesitancy when you see these in, any kind of, honestly, media, because just what comes with how religion can be easily skewed and be a cult, in some regards, especially in these post-apocalyptic kind of worlds. But calling back to that one episode last season with David and the cannibals that Ellie kind of had that run-in with. But they're running from war with the wolves, and that's just kind of what we're seeing. They go on guard because they're there. They're fighting with the wolves.
And the little girl in the scene that she says, kind of looking at her father, and she says, "Are those demons?" And the father says, "No, those are wolves."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's where we it kind of establishes that there's the feud between them and the wolf.
Do we really know that there's a feud, or do we know that they're just like someone that they are aware of? Because I didn't necessarily get that there's a feud going on as much as like, hey, these are our enemies among this terrain, and these are some dangerous cats. We got to be careful.
Yeah, sure. When I'm saying feud, I'm saying like they avoid them. They know of this group. They're dangerous. They have call out signals for them.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what I mean. It's like they're trying to get away from them. They're said they're running from a war. So
yeah, no, that's true. They did say that.
It could have been they could have been a subgroup of Seattle, and they've branched off because they don't like the direction the wolves are going.
Well, yeah, they don't have guns. We forgot to kind of mention that.
They got hammers.
They got hammers and bows and arrows. They got tools like that. Those kind of, what would you even call those? Just
medieval.
Yeah, sure, medieval. That'll work. But essentially, that's what we're getting from the scene. It's establishing this group and that there's some kind of conflict.
Yeah.
Cut forward into Ellie training with Jesse. Big scene, and this is where we get the payoff. You know, obviously after Ellie's done punching and he kind of busts her balls about not being as good as she should be anyways, you know, coming back from her recovery, or she wasn't good prior. Anyways, Jesse's stepping up. He's on the council now.
Yeah.
And Ellie is here trying to, you know, count on his vote, you know, doing the same thing she did with Tommy. You know, she's, you know, what is it? Kind of campaigning here, you know, in a way. And Jesse does give her the positive or the good advice. You know, I think in this scene and what you were kind of getting at, Mike, I don't think she got Jesse's vote. I think this scene implies that Jesse is not voting for her.
Really?
Play. Yeah, I do.
Really? I'll just say it right now. I don't know why we're not saying it. I think that the votes for were Maria, Tommy, and also Jesse.
Absolutely.
There were 3 votes for.
I disagree with Austin.
What the hell is he thinking?
He's had too much coffee. There's something just not right with that. But
yeah, I don't agree, Us.
Something that I'm noticing is, you know, first of all, you see Jesse and Tommy together, and you see, you know, let's face it, you know, Jesse's built. I mean, the dude is stacked. I was kind of impressed, and that was a good scene in that you're going, that dude he's put together. So you see that, then you see him you see Ellie punching the bag, and you see him holding it. If y'all remember, he turns around and he's kind of, you know, gives it a couple swings too, and you just see, man, this dude, he's quick, he's in shape. You see more and more they're drawing you into, you know, he's giving advice. He's showing that
he's got the brawn and the brain,
I've got that leadership quality. I'm cool. I'm calm. I'm unlike Joel in that, hey, I'm not just going to go attack it. I'm thinking this through. So I think that's where Austin was what he's alluding to is Jesse's really smart. Maybe Jesse wasn't. Maybe he didn't vote yes.
I kind of think Jesse's doing it to protect her. That's why I think, because he knows that this is she's not doing this for the right reasons. I think that's what it is. I think Tommy's got the family thing, but I think Jesse's kind of the reason guy where he's that's where I'm coming from, at least with it. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I mean, she even says, hey, you were there. Like, how can you not be on my side? And he says, yeah, I was. And I think he gives her the advice of, hey, this is how you need to vote. I think he gives her that advice because
I think it's not
wants to help
you
her
need
out.
to vote. I think it's, hey, this is the advice if you want to get anyone on your side. If you're going to go in, he used the word, I think, what was it, Austin? Angry. If you go in and they see anger and she tries to fool the crowd like she was trying to fool Gail earlier, you know, I think they say she's a liar. We all know that. She's going to say whatever it takes to get those 16 individuals to come out and go after this group of WLF.
Here's a take on it. So let's think maybe Jesse did vote for her. I think maybe Jesse did vote for her, Jesus, knowing that she was going to lose. Maybe he didn't want her to win, but maybe he gave her his vote as a support thing. Because this was never passing, guys. Let's be honest, right? It was 8-3.
Austin, I think he knew that going in. That's why I think he did vote
yes.
He
said that they're not going to vote for angry. Like, if you want to have any kind of fight and shot, you need to come up here and, you know, get your thoughts together. And I think it's just so obviously a bad idea that there was no chance this was passing.
Yeah.
Out of what? For just, even when, I thought it was really funny when Maria is up there after they've done the vote. But throughout this council scene, there's some good stuff. You get to see that other people were lost too. We're not going to send out 16 people and leave our self-defense to raiders. Like, it's a bad idea. We're going through this. The Scott scene is hilarious at the beginning. That jackass wanting to grow corn. Scott's tough. Carlisle, he's asking us to break the cycle.
Yeah.
But it's just a bad idea. Maria says at the end, once the vote's been done, like, we are voting on if we send a group of 16 to Seattle and execute the people who killed Joel. It's like, it sounds just so, like, obviously that's not what you're supposed to do.
It sounds barbaric.
Who's voting for that on this council reason?
We've already said it a few times, and I kind of have a point with this. We're seeing kind of different philosophies here. So we're seeing the path of vengeance and the path of mercy, right? And I think that the path of mercy is obviously the more mature way to go. And I think in our heart of hearts, we know that just kind of getting into this cycle of killing to kill, and then, this person killed this person, we're going to kill them, then they're going to kill us, and, back and forth. I think we know that is not the way to be.
Exactly.
But I think 19-year-old Ellie is so fueled by that rage and that wrongdoing that it doesn't matter at all. That's the way that she's thinking. And I think all of us could agree. I think we could all say that maybe we've all mellowed out a little bit as time has gone on as well. I know both of those perspectives. And the thing that I would like to say is, although we know maybe that this path of mercy is the righteous one, I don't think any of us could deny that when you're watching Abby stab it was a broken golf club, right?
Yeah.
She beat him so bad that she snapped a golf club in half.
Snapped the head off.
She snapped it off because she beat him with it so bad. And then she stabbed it through his neck. I think all of us watching that, I think it's hard to choose that path of mercy. And my argument would be, I think maybe this is controversial, I think that you need some of those differing opinions. And maybe it's almost like with Ellie being the younger person, she still has that fire. And I think that fire, although maybe a little bit misplaced in some ways, I think you do need that to keep the gears running in some sense.
This is why
Griff, this isn't an age thing. That I think you were going in the right path. This is definitely not an age thing. This is just a philosophy. I mean, Seth jumps in, and you saw the anger in Seth.
Oh, 10-man Seth. He needs some WD-40 on his joints, man. He is hurting.
I'll tell you what, and I pointed it out to you guys during the second viewing. Seth's built, guys. Seth's in pretty good shape.
Hey, you keep saying
to hell with that.
He wasn't. I'll jump in real quick. Seth, he's kind of made a little bit of a 180 spin, wouldn't you say?
Flip coins, baby. The gray. There it is.
But I'm
ambiguity,
sorry. I
baby.
interrupted you, Dad.
I'm going to save that for later about Seth. I was very impressed with Seth.
There's no sense in saving it. We're here. We're in that scene.
Well, I'll tell you what. Watch what just watching him, and he just he wasn't even on the list. Maria, they didn't have him on the list to speak. And he jumped in like, I don't care what you all think, I'm speaking up because, hey, we're all one big family here. And he jumps in and gives his input. And if you watch Ellie in that scene, Ellie almost breaks a smile. She almost grins at the guy that we know she can't stand him.
Yeah.
So
it's good to have someone in your corner when she's fueled and he's kind of going along. He's a proponent for her. So yeah, she's definitely digging that in some kind of way. Ellie's speech I thought was pretty. Like, did you believe her? No.
Hell no. That was lame.
Like, it was pretty corny, too. Like,
it was
like,
lame.
Come on, Ellie. Like, you don't even believe what you're saying. And that's what Gail ends up calling her out on. Basically, it's like, she's lying. Like, she's trying to present this in a way of reason. And it's just too unreasonable to even, like, it's a losing battle from the start. So, like, you were never convincing me. Like, there's nothing you could write down from a place of reason that's like, oh, we really need to go after them and execute them. And, you know,
Well, I think
she opens up with, guys, I got to say this, and then you all can
it's not
off.
about revenge.
I know she says it's not about, I want justice. And you're going, no one believes that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
she wants that woman's head on a stick.
You're right. You're right, though. I think that it does demonstrate a little bit of the futility of the argument at its core. Because, you know what? When I was watching it, I agree with you guys, but I was like, at least she put a few thoughts together.
No,
I think that
you can appreciate that.
What
growing up in a way,
well,
right?
Yeah, you could say that.
Stepping up.
What argument could she have made to make that sound a little bit more reasonable?
Yeah, I think she lost from the beginning. You know, I thought it was a fixed game.
Again, guys, I keep disagreeing with you all today. I think she could have gone in a little bit more emotional. Sure. And I would have, not
reading verbatim line for line from a piece of paper.
It seemed, the word was stiff to me. I want justice. Do it for us. Do it. What? Nobody buys that. I would have gone in from the perspective of, hey, guys, I was there. It was the most brutal thing that I've witnessed. And you all see what's going on around us. We've got infected. It's a horrible place to live right now, but we're surviving. In that you don't know what was done to this man. In that it was, it was a downright, it was just a beating.
Yeah.
When you grab me, is beating the word? Give me a better adjective than beating.
She was no Jordan Belfort up there. Let's put it that way. I was thinking about basic. It felt like I was back in school, with a fourth grader reading off their speech. And it's like, this kid doesn't know what they're even saying. They're just reading shit from a piece of paper. It feels ingenuine. It doesn't feel like it's, she's not selling me. You're not getting you needed people to be fired up, and Seth's a quick trigger. If he's the only one you're getting fired up, you're not winning.
Because he's fired up anyway. And Gale says
he's always red, man. He's like he's a teapot, man. He's just
there may be a little high blood pressure there with that cat.
Something cool too is, he's right there, like you're saying, from the get-go. You know exactly how he feels. He's very passionate about it. And I think it's kind of cool that he's taking Joel's side so strongly. And keep in mind, in that first episode, Joel's the one who threw him right on the ground.
Yeah. Well, he probably appreciated that. He's like, someone will kick my ass.
Well, again, we talk about putting somebody in check. Let's face it, the guy was drunk. And what he said was not appropriate to the girls. So, and something else, guys, I keep going back to this line that you're a liar. Let's go forward a little bit. When Gail's talking with Tommy, she says to the effect, don't believe her speech. She is a liar. And then they debate, liar versus lying, I think is how they do it. But Gail sees right through her BS.
Yeah.
And Austin, her speech was terrible. Let's face it. It was really, I was kind of hoping for a lot more, as I'm sure everybody was. It was really weak, and that's why, we're going to talk about that.
Well, they sprinkled in some yeses at the beginning of the reading, just to make it seem like it was any way close. But they went on a cold streak, ended up being 8-3. So it never had a shot. It was basically, what was it? A political landslide.
Are you seeing any look in Tommy's eyes? I think I was seeing something in Tommy's eyes of like, damn, that's really where it stands now. Like, that's what it is.
He looked around to see if anyone could give him eye contact. He was guessing. He was counting too. He was seeing nose.
Yeah,
that's what he was doing there. Exactly. Good call. All right, but that next scene is where we cut to the T-ball scene. Pretty scene, just out in the mountains as Griffin.
Well, Austin, are we going to talk about the 8-3? I mean,
8-3. Oh, yeah.
We already determined. You
want to run through the numbers? I don't know everyone on the board. We only got like 3 people we know on the board, right?
Yeah, and again, I think Griffin, you said Maria, Tommy, Jesse. Was that your 3?
But Maria's so reasonable too. Like, I don't take her as an emotional.
Who else could it
going to be?
Well, I think that's exactly.
Hell, they're sitting there listening to Scott talking about turkeys and corn. Come on,
I don't think Austin is on the pulse here. Like,
No, I don't know what he's drinking.
I guess it has. I mean, I guess it has to be them because everyone else is a no name. I mean, like no.
Come on, Oz.
Yeah, I mean, like I guess,
They
but
picked three.
Austin,
but I almost don't believe that they would do it. You know, like I don't
God,
Griffin,
man.
I think we're gonna have to take this.
Yeah, we might have to run down.
That's fine. That's fine. That's what they're implying. I hear you there, like in terms of like what the show is telling you who voted for her, but I almost don't believe that they would. You know, for her,
let's just move on. I'll
from-
recap.
God damn it.
I love that.
Make them coffee.
He's
Have
on
them in the
recap.
basement. You fucking bastard. All right. So the T-ball scene, and this is Gail, and like I said earlier, this is where we see how like, kind of disheveled Gail is.
Oh yeah,
you know, like
she's sitting out in a lawn chair watching T-ball, saying, "Go number 9."
and she goes, "Oh shit!" Then he falls over. Yeah, no, that's good stuff. She's just got her beers out there with her, and she's smoking. You know, she says the line, "I'm a complete fucking disaster."
Yeah.
You know, she's the psychotherapist for everyone there, but she's got no one to talk to. She knows, you know, she's.
Well, people keep saying too, they're like, "God, a lot of work probably for you right now." I think Tommy says that. She's like, yeah, it's insane how many." You know, I mean, she's the only one in the town to you know offer that advice, right?
Yeah.
To offer that service,
And that's what
everyone needs that help right now.
That's what I think's really, I guess, a really effective use of her character throughout this season so far is you're going to get those kind of looks into a character's psyche through a psychotherapist session, you know? Yeah.
She's always giving you something to look forward to or to be looking to see if it happens.
And let's call it as is too. She's just entertaining as hell on screen. Like her character.
Absolutely, Austin. And
Right.
she lightens the mood.
Yeah.
I mean, if you remember, she makes a comment about the kids out there playing T-ball. She says, hey, this is about as good as watching the Detroit Tigers. You know, she takes a shot at the Tigers. And then I love this line. She says, when Tommy asks her, she says, yeah, alcohol and smoke. She said, alcohol and smoke as much weed as I can. You know, she's saying, hey, that's how she gets by.
Yep. I'm just a complete fucking disaster.
I'm just
how are you holding up? Well, I'm an alcoholic.
there it is, Greg. Yeah, I'm an alcoholic.
But in this scene, we see that Tommy is fighting he's becoming this father figure now. You know, he inherited Ellie now, and he wants to keep her from following Joel's destructive paths that, you know, ended up with him being dead, you know, getting a golf club through his neck. So she wants to keep Ellie from that same fate. He's fighting for that break to the cycle. I think we're getting that reason. That's why it's like, why would he have voted for it? You know, like I get it. We're not going back there. Fuck it.
Yeah.
But throughout this, she says that, of course not, she's a liar. There's one thing that I don't like that Gail says here is this. She just says like some people just can't be saved. I don't like that she has that perspective in a way. I think in this scene, it opens up to maybe her own redemption some kind of way, because I think she has some growing she needs to do. Like she's put together, and her brutal honesty is that, but I think a lot of that too is like she's not really handling her own shit in a positive way. Obviously, she's drinking and smoking.
Well, she's drinking and she's high all the time, and she tells you that.
Yeah. So I think that kind of opens up the possibility that we're going to see something in her change. What is that shift in her that kind of gets her back on the tracks? Or maybe she's just this kind of,
Austin,
moral, ambiguous character in a way.
Joel killed her husband.
Yeah.
So of course she thinks that Ellie's as nuts as Joel. She says they were walking side by side from the start. So she makes that point.
That's really
that tells
cool.
you everything you really need to know.
I was about to say, I think we're missing the boat here, guys.
Yeah, that was really.
I think what you get from this scene. Yeah, what you get from this scene is that wisdom. Because I think that's pretty wise. I think you.
Yeah,
I think that was almost like a brake check line in the way of maybe it's not literally putting the brakes on someone else's thought process. I think it's just one that stops you in your tracks and makes you say, "Oh wow."
Well, I think it's this look into human nature.
Yeah,
it's like Well, that's exactly what it is, because it's not nurture. You know, she's not picking this up from Joel. They were walking side by side.
Well, she says, Tommy, if you're worried that she learned this behavior from Joel, I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
I think they were, like you said, side by side this whole time. I think that's just kind of interesting because I think it, like you said, it really is a sort of look into human nature. And I think it also maybe puts a different light on Joel and Ellie's relationship too.
Of course. Yeah, of course. And like he did, of course, nurture her, but she saved his life too, which we hear about later in the scene, or later in the episode, which he kind of talks about that scene. But like, they were there. They were partners in a lot of ways. And that's what, probably made that connection and that relationship so, positive for them. And they were able to connect on such a visceral level. All right. We then cut to Ellie fixing to leave, packing up her things. We see, obviously, she only has guns. And this is a theme that's been established and we will continue to see now that it's the Ellie and Dina kind of parade. It's the party of them two, the bronze and the brain. And that's just some more of this in this scene where Ellie's fixing to leave. She's grabbing her gun. She thinks she's going to go do this all by herself, obviously.
Well, we see, again, it's another clear example of where Ellie's head is.
Yep.
What is she thinking about? She's thinking about the guns. I mean, we've said this a million times now, but there are that many examples of, what she's focused on is just... She's focused on killing Abby. She's focused on getting that revenge. It's that simple.
That's the plan. That's the plan. Well, that is literally it. There is no plan. That's the goal, and there's no means of getting there aside from, gun. Mm-hmm. Dina comes in, and obviously she knows that this is what's going on. She has that kind of friend spidey instinct or something. Mm-hmm. Shows up, pulls out the map from behind her. She questions her, calls her on her shit. Says, hey, how you getting there? Northwest. You got anything for bandages? What if you fall and break your ankle? Yeah. And the thing with Ellie, the way she is, and it made me even think back to, this is maybe not even worth bringing up, but there was a time in episode or the first season where Ellie's just doing clumsy shit, like throwing a ladder around. And I call out on one of the episodes how it's like, you should probably be a little more careful so you don't just sprain an ankle or like break something. And that just completely derails everything. Like in this kind of world where there's not modern medicine, you're on the road. Anyways, she's not ready for any kind of hiccup like that. It's just showing that she's unplanned, and Dina is going to be this person with the master plan who's getting you along, and is going to kind of give direction to your fiery revenge quest.
Guys, we've all known some idiot from college where you're saying, hey, let's go on spring break, and they grab a bag of chips and, 12 beers and they're ready to go. And you're like, hey, you didn't bring any clothes. I mean, that's what this is about is she hadn't thought this out. All she's thinking is I'm getting this bitch. And Dina comes in and she saves the day. I mean, when she says, hey, have you thought this out? You need provisions. And she starts talking about medical. She starts explaining maps. Again, and Austin said it is, you got the brains and the brawn, and she's definitely the brains of this operation. We find that out later on when we see, hey, the weather change, and she's all over it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, we're just deepening this connection between.
They're a good team.
Dina and Ellie. Exactly, they're a good team. And Dina is right there. Like you mentioned, Austin, she says, hey, I loved him too.
Yeah, exactly.
She's right there with him. And she's doing this.
That's why they had Dina in that scene too. I think the show writers, just to give more fuel to her fire and her want for revenge Austin, too. She was there.
Austin, don't you think they had to have a character replace Joel? I mean, Joel was the brains, right? Don't you think? She's kind of replacing Joel in that. Y'all are looking at me funny. Like
I'm thinking on it.
I think you need the team. You need the team because the whole dynamic is.
Let
Joel
me just
and
really
Abby.
throw it out there. Is I think first season 2, the comparison to Seth and my boy Bill, I think that's a big one too. I think they're interchanging characters, guys.
Fair.
And I think they put Dina in. She comes in and says, "Hey, I got a list of provisions." That's what Joel would have done. Joel was the one always saying, "Hey, we've got this, this, and this." When you see him leave Bill and Frank's house, he was grabbing everything that he needed to along, with the car, packing it up.
I think there's a thing to be said there about just dynamic duos throughout the series, and just how the roles, like how people take on roles and fill different shoes to kind of maybe help out someone who doesn't have as good as skill set, in that field perhaps, and maybe just how those relationships work together and how a team is formed and how
we might
it's
even
this partnership.
Yeah, we might even partnership. I think that's
you
a good
can even
point.
call this maybe sounds silly, but you can even call it like a marriage, because you guys know that, hey, one of you is good at this, one of you is good at that, and we come together and we get things done.
Well, I mean, I think we might even be a little in the weeds. Like, I think very basically, there's a formula that works. You need the, like you said, the whole thing, the whole series has been about this partnership between Joel and Ellie. And, with Joel now not being in the picture, you still need that element. And where are you going to get it? It makes perfect sense that this would happen. And that Ellie's looking, who does Ellie really have now?
Dina.
There aren't that many people. She has Dina.
Yep. And
she has no one if Dina's not there.
And maybe we see in the opening credit this time, maybe 2 are back.
I was wondering.
Yeah.
I was just wondering.
That'll be interesting. Something to look out for, team.
Guys, the other thing is we talked about how Dina had her act together and she had provision. She also makes a comment about the shoes. And I go from way back where I wore Chucks, and she even calls them Chucks. I thought that was kind of cool. Like, you can't go in Chucks. Again, that shows you how prepared Ellie was to actually go to Seattle.
What else would she call them aside from Chucks?
She said Converse at first, and then she said Chucks.
That was a bit. That was a nice moment of levity as well. I thought just a little something to put into humor.
She had talked about it earlier too. Like, should have kept the Chucks when she gave up the boots.
Should have kept the boots.
Guys, this is also where we hear where Dina calls Jesse Captain Wyoming. Happens right in this scene. She says it at the end. Hey, don't. She said, hey, we've got provisions. We're meeting at 3 a.m. And she says, who got the provisions for us? And Dina says, she says it was.
Well, Ellie guesses. She says, was it Jesse?
Okay, you're right. And she says, at that point, you mean Captain Wyoming? No, wasn't him, because he follows the rules. Yeah. Again, it shows that leadership quality.
Who is Captain Wyoming? Is that some
I was going to say
reference?
I was about to say it. I wasn't either. Maybe she's just calling.
I think that's just her thing.
She's just giving out.
They're in Wyoming.
Okay. Just like probably just a stickler for rules, kind of like he's a good to do kind of
Wyoming.
Yeah, exactly. But then we say, I know a guy. She says, I know a guy, and we get that payoff with Seth, where he does kind of. He's turned it on its head. This guy obviously said a pretty bigoted thing, behaved a certain way that is not appropriate towards these people. They're pissed at him, or Ellie has been very pissed at him and hasn't forgiven him. But, she's still reluctant in this, of course, and maybe rightly so. I can't say that for, certain. But anyways, I think she does by shaking his hand. I was going to say, I feel like this was kind of that moment of growing up, because she didn't refuse to shake his hand. She does shake him hand. I think that is symbolic of her, stepping up to the plate.
It's a bit emblematic. Well, I mean, I think how could she deny the guy? Seeing everything that he was doing.
He was trying to help, honestly.
He
it was a genuine effort.
He handed her that shotgun as well.
It was a rifle.
It was a rifle with a scope, yeah.
He handed her that saying,
it's better.
It's better, trade.
He said, make the trade.
Yeah, take this.
Yeah. Well, and she saw him in that meeting. We already mentioned that. Yeah. She saw where his head was at. The guy's limping in the forest to help them at 3 a.m. get the hell out of there.
He said he would have gone.
I would have gone. Yeah. I mean, and how can you not shake?
She takes a shot at him and says, "Was it friendly fire?"
No,
she does kick him in the shin there a little there, but
she's still got quite a bit of attitude toward him.
Yeah, but that's just her. Him. Where we were getting at the element. Sorry to cut you off there, Mike, but where we were getting at the fact that she still behaves immaturely. I think some of that is just behaviorally, but when it came to shaking this guy's hand, accepting his help, and I think in that moment forgiving, that's something that maybe she wouldn't have done before Joel's death, that kind of knocked her in her face, said, hey, grow the fuck up, like accept help here. You got someone in your corner who's working to help out. Things aren't cut and dry. It's not black and white. And that's, something we're seeing throughout this. And we'll continue to see, of course.
The big thing for me also is that eye contact she made. She, kind of snapped the handshake. So that meant, like, to me that, hey, maybe I am growing up a little bit. And I do see that you're on my side.
Yeah.
So I think you're right.
We then get into their the Joel's grave scene.
Yep.
Real pretty. Another good use of music throughout this. There's not a lot of sound. Ellie's not really saying anything. Ultimately, she leaves the coffee beans, which is something just symbolic of Joel to her. They had, I guess, all along their quest in season 1, coffee. There's a little payoff scene in that where she's like, what's that? He likes his coffee. And she leaves this to remember him by. In that moment, and I see her smile, like I felt like that might have been the release. Like, that she kind of, in terms of getting on the other side of this thing and being, I guess, better about it in a way. But like, I didn't think that as soon as she kind of walked away, when you see her kind of frowning and crying still, and it's like almost she snaps back into like this revenge.
She's on a mission. I don't know if I don't know if there's ever the release, but I don't think it's until she pulls that damn trigger.
Yeah. I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, it felt like maybe she at least was getting on the other side of, like, maybe like, I can't even say that because she's not handling this positively, but like there's some kind of resolution in that scene. I don't know what it is, but this release of the coffee beans, leaving him with him, seeing him in the ground, like there's some sort of finality to it.
Oh, it's at
even
least
though she has like the next chapter.
It is at least her getting to have some sort of, I don't know if goodbye is the right word, but there's some sort of, yeah, I guess
finality, like a release.
There's a kind of finality.
I kind of looked at it as more of a respect to Joel. They were putting the coffee beans down. It's, I said it early, the grief hits us in different ways. And there's a point in grief that you have to basically break down. And she was going to do that before Dina knocked on the door when she was, she was smelling the clothes. And I like Austin, thought that, hey, when she sees the gravesite saying Miller, Joel, that she was going to just break down there, and she didn't. She put down the beans of coffee, and I was expecting more from that scene. I was expecting more of her being upset.
Yeah, but like that's the thing that kind of perplexed me is she smiles, but then when she turns around, like she looks like she's really shaken still. So it's like, did she really, like she hasn't put it in the past, obviously.
No, it's game time at that point.
I think it's just like I think it's just pretty obvious, like how it's not like you just walk away and everything's rosy at that point. I think it's just kind of showing the back and forth, the black and white. It's a very nuanced. I keep using that word. It's a very nuanced situation, and there's a lot of. I guess there's just so many mixed emotions. How could there not be? Mm-hmm. So I think it's just, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's just kind of showing that in some kind of way.
We then get a Lord of the Rings-esque cinematography, just phenomenal set of scenes of them traveling out west, just getting, we have a big out west trip coming up as a family, and just really getting us cranked for that, seeing all of that, those, we're just the mountains.
We start talking about what cowboy hats we're getting.
I know.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah. So that was really nice. And like I said, it kind of has that Lord of the Rings feel, just seeing the scale and the beautiful scenery traveling across it. And what gets back to like the core roots of what this series is, like a traveling of two people, that's what the core of season 1 was, them traveling across the country to find the Fireflies. They're on their journey now, and, they've already arrived and trouble to come. But, just it kind of felt homey, Yeah. It felt like where this thing, what really started.
For sure.
Yep. Throughout this, we have that, like Mike was saying, Dina's on her shit. Probably want to find an overlook here. It's like, oh, why? It looks good. It's storming 2 seconds later. They're bundled up. They're in the tent. But throughout the travel scenes as well, there's this dynamic that kind of parallels Joel and Ellie's with Dina not shutting up, keeping impressed. And Ellie's like, or silence. Like that's where it hits like, oh, she's Joel right here. Like telling this little kid to shut up. You're bugging me kind of thing. So that's pretty good. Joel and her season 1. And like I said, getting back to that core root of like this travel quest and like shooting the shit over a long time, riding. So I think that was really funny. So the storm comes, Dina's on it. They set up their tent. And throughout this, some fun dialogue, kind of revisiting the scene and feelings of New Year's Eve, the kiss that took place and what all that meant. And I think we're left not knowing anything still, like there's those little kicks at the end where it's like, oh, maybe I wasn't that high,
Yeah.
Was this more than, well, she says she's not gay, of course, throughout the scene. And she says she's already back with Jesse. Go Jesse. He's the man, Captain Wyoming.
Yeah. But I think the whole thing is, Ellie's trying to play it cool.
Yeah.
Ellie's trying to act like she doesn't care. Ellie cares. And I think she's just
6.
She's hiding her emotions a little bit. And I mean, what happened? She's like, oh well, why don't you just end up with you'll be back with Jesse? Kind of like just saying it, and then she's like, oh well, I already have. And that was just like a Jesse gut punch. Baby. Yeah, that was a gut punch for Ellie, and Ellie goes, oh, there you have it.
Yeah,
she's feeling these things, and when Dina does say, I wasn't that high, I think you get a little glimmer in Ellie's eyes,
Well, exactly. And this little heartbreaker, Dina, just messing with emotions, man, gaslighting over here. But, I mean, it'll be funny to see what that becomes because, like I said, I think we're left with the same questions we had before. It's like, how much did that really mean?
Yeah.
Because she's not really letting on that it was more than anything, but she's not saying it wasn't either. It's like, not confirming nor denying.
Yeah.
Guys, don't you all find it interesting that it's taken almost the end of this episode to bring that up? I kind of was waiting for that. I'm like, when are they ever going to talk about this?
When it got to it in the recap, asshole.
Yeah. What a jackleg. Unbelievable. But,
so what do you have to say? What do you got?
But my point is
I kind of forgot you were alive. You haven't said anything in probably 20 minutes.
You too.
What are you doing over there?
Get a word in edgewise.
Did you fall asleep during the episode? Do you even know what you're doing?
Okay, wipe the crusties out your eyes.
Yeah. Time to wake up.
My goodness. Told you. Hey, this is what you deal with to get on this show. Golly, I don't even know if I have a point now. I don't even know if I have a point now, but it just seemed like
a small price to pay.
3 months, she finally tells her, hey, these are the guys and the gals that did this to Joel. And there's never, to me, I would have gone, hey, what happened at New Year's Eve? That was a little different. And then she points out, she throws out there that, hey, how was I? You were a 6. I agree
that
with what
sucks.
Yeah, that's terrible.
6.
And come on, I'm gonna throw it back at you guys. What do you think she's really thinking? What do you think Ellie was really thinking?
Fireworks.
Yeah, I think Ellie got swept off her feet.
I think she loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason I don't think it's that much of a confusion as to why it took so long to talk about it, because I think especially for Ellie, she had a lot of, sometimes when you have a lot of feelings steeped in something, you want to give it a little bit of time because you don't want to you don't want to get your heart broken if you ask so quickly and kind of find out, it wasn't anything at all.
Yeah, you don't want to get it caught on the side of like it meaning more to you than what it really was. Like looking like that.
She doesn't want to show
eager
her
beaver.
Hand. She don't want to show her hand.
She doesn't want to show her hand. Sometimes I think it's fun. Sometimes you just live in the fantasy for all, and you're like, I'm going to break the fantasy if we talk about this, and then
things are good.
Yeah, and then she says, hey, well, actually, no, that wasn't anything. Then the fantasy's dead. So
yeah. Sure. Fair enough.
Well, let me add this, Oz.
Go ahead,
I don't know if you're going to hit this since I don't get to say very much on this one. But Ellie seems, we know she seems jealous. and help me with who said this. Does Jesse strike you as sad?
Dina says that.
I thought it was Dina, but
yeah.
I didn't have it. I didn't have either Ellie or Jesse. But she said, does Jesse strike you as sad? Did that kind of hit you as, why did she bring that up?
I don't know. I think it's just maybe another or a deeper look into Jesse and giving him some kind of, I don't know. It was interesting because it felt like it was supposed to have a lot of weight to it, but I didn't know what it really meant either, because then she goes, then otherwise it's me. It's like, what does that mean? You know, it's like you think she's the source of his sadness, but like what evidence does she have?
Happy.
Yeah.
She's not making him happy. So,
well, I thought it was kind of I think you guys are exactly right. It had a lot of similarities to me with actually the scene with Gail where she says, hey, I think they were on the path together from the start. I thought it had a very similar feeling in terms of leaving you with this idea and letting you kind of juggle it, do what you wanted with it. I think
we'll be paying attention now to Jesse in that way, I think.
Well, I think it started off with a, we're looking into Jesse, but I think it really ended up we were looking into Dina. And I think when she said, well, otherwise it's me, I think what that was saying is, hey, I mean, she's been tossing this guy around. What's she doing? You saw her in that dancing scene. She's doing whatever the hell she wants. And I think maybe it's saying, hey, whereas we thought that Jesse wasn't affected by this or was, in his own world with it all, I think it probably means a little bit more to him than it does to her.
But guys, don't you think this is a George Bailey moment for Jesse? He's being pushed into something he may not want to have to do. Maybe he doesn't want to have to be a leader. That's kind of what I think is making him sad. Both of you are frowning.
Are you? I don't know if I agree with that though. It seems like he's pretty excited to be in.
It seems like he's stepping up.
Oh, he's definitely stepping up. But so did George Bailey. Is this something that he really wants to do?
Maybe not.
I don't know. I think he's a very compassionate man, but he knows. I mean,
I don't know if I have anything that leads me to believe that he isn't like wanting or like any less wanting of the position than anyone else as much, because like George Bailey has I want to get out and travel the world. Like, I don't know what that is to Jesse, what does Jesse want? We don't know that.
We don't know that. That's true.
Yeah. I'll maintain my position. I think that was far more a commentary on Dina than Jesse, for sure.
Is this a Kreskin moment, Griff?
Well, let's have it.
Is that a Kreskin moment? Are you calling the shot that it's going to be more her?
Well, you think it's because she is gay? You think
that
might be?
I don't necessarily think that. I mean, I think those lines are blurry, but I think it's more just hinting at Dina reflecting on herself.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to dig more into what troubles Dina.
Well,
right?
Griffin, she says, I wasn't that high, and just kind of rolls over. I mean, I think that was, maybe I'm an old man and I don't know what flirting is anymore, but that seems like that's flirting to me.
She knows what she's doing. That's there's intent.
Well, I can't tell. I can't tell if, like we've said, if it's more Dina just pulling her leg a little bit and screwing with her.
Well, we've touched on both of them. What is it? And I think that's what I'm getting at when I'm saying I think we leave this scene with the same questions we entered it with in terms of what everything's meant. Like there's no finality to that yet. That's still to come. Or maybe we won't get it at all. Who knows? Anyways, last scene of the episode, we see the Seraphites massacred. And I think that just establishes maybe the ruthless nature of the wolves, because Ellie really hones in on that and says, like, if this was Abby's group and they did that to kids, it's just like validating herself in this pursuit of revenge. And maybe that's something that she's maybe fighting and tossing around in her head, because like you said, is it too much of a catharsis for her to go there and continue the cycle of revenge? Or does she break that? And is this the first glimpse into her, because she's needing to validate this revenge quest to kill her so badly, needs to make her evil badly?
I will say,
I think it's definitely stretching and digging.
I hadn't thought about that at all. I more just kind of saw it as establishing these wolves, that, like we mentioned, they said early, not enough of them to mess with us. Like, we can take them on. I think it's just establishing they're dangerous.
Yeah.
They are dangerous, and they are ruthless. They will kill children. We see a dead kid. I mean,
it was said earlier, there's only a few of them, and then you see when Dina goes out in that field and you see 20, 25, maybe more dead. There's a lot more wolves than we thought.
What? Well, how's that related?
He's saying that because they were so easily able to pick off the Seraphites and take them out, maybe they're a bit more dangerous. But like, I think she still thinks it's probably just Abby and them. But we do get, what you're getting at paid off in that there are obviously way more wolves than. And I'm trying to kind of push this scene along. It's not too much. We're at an hour and 24, so basically they arrive in Seattle. We see the wolves are bad. They've killed these, children included.
Yep.
So further kind of legitimizing this quest for revenge. They're bad people. They break some rules here. They say it's too quiet, so that's kind of an ominous line. Mm-hmm. Of course, you always hear that one. The grand scene of Seattle, very cool. I think that's something that's really kind of been awesome throughout the series, is seeing these cityscapes disheveled, overgrown. A very cool part of just the tone, setting, theme, and just feeling of the series as a whole. We see a familiar face here, Manny looking out. And we also get a furthering of Manny being a bit of a shit stirrer, kind of reluctant to take these orders. And he's like...
Well, and we already caught glimpses of that, so I think this is just a continuation.
Exactly. And then finally... as they, Ellie says, I guess they can't be many more of them, or Dina says I can't because it's very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And there's about to be a whole lot less. But then we get the payoff of seeing those military vehicles go down Main Street. Mm-hmm. They're also organized. Manny has routes that he's paying attention to. Yeah. And then we hear footsteps marching, and there only becomes more and more of these people. Mm-hmm. And a liken to the lodge scene when Abby's group is waking up, looking down to Jackson in ducks in a row. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Yeah. You're seeing this, and you're like, oh, fuck.
This is a lot deeper, more serious than we anticipated, and it's going to be a much tougher fight than we knew.
A lot more than two should be able to take on.
You remember the lodge scene where they're looking out and they see Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and they're organized. They've got all their ducks in a row.
Yeah.
And then you see that last scene where the tank's going through, and my thoughts were, wow, they're pretty organized and got their ducks in a row too. And when you see Manny up in the watchtower, he's the eye in the sky watching what's going on, and he's kind of conducting traffic.
Well, what was funny is he's not the only one either. Remember, because he said, hey, I forget what the numbers were. He said, hey, can you check here? And he said, I thought I was checking these. I thought I was 3 to 5, and you want 6 to 8 now. Yeah. So to me, that was saying, there are more people doing this too.
They're organized. They've got numbers, and from what we see, are pretty ruthless, killing kids, kind of thing. So these wolves are bad news. The bad news wolves, as we'll say it here. But that's our recap. More to come. Excited to see. I think we're going to maybe see a little pickup in motion this episode. This would probably be a good episode for they might go with a big shift. Like we might get a look into some backstory here or there, maybe like an Abby thing. I don't really know what to expect from this one. I don't know if I paid attention to the preview much, but we'll kind of see where this one goes. I don't know if it'll continue and pick up right exactly where we were, or if we'll get in some kind of look into, Joel and Ellie in the past, something that's happened over the past 5 years, maybe Abby and her journey. So
Austin,
we'll see.
Maybe we see something about Eugene.
Maybe we see Eugene growing his sticky bud,
Got the sticky icky.
Sticky icky. All right. So we'll look at the IMDb scores currently. We have episode 1 was sitting. Go ahead, Mike. You have something to say?
No, I just didn't want you to throw out the number because I was wanting to guess.
Episode 1, I'm going. 1 is still sitting at a 7.5. We gave that like a 6.8 to 7.2.
Yeah.
2 is currently sitting at a 9.4. I gave it a 9.5. And give me a guess on episode 3, guys.
Kick us off, Griff.
7.4.
7.4.
That's my guess.
I'm gonna throw out 7.5, 7.6.
Okay. The score is 7.4. That's what we got it rated. So Honestly, I think I liked this one more than episode 1, to be honest.
Yeah, I
did
agree
as well.
So I'm going to go above a 7.4 in terms of my own rating.
Okay.
IMDb says 7.4. I'm going to give it I think a 7.6 to 7.8, somewhere kind of that range. Maybe 7.6. 7.6 feels good. I think it was better. I didn't think it was significantly better, but I think there were some really strong scenes, and then like just kind of the weight of Joel being gone and kind of seeing the, us getting back to the core nature of the kind of series. It's just, I think I like this one better than episode 1. So I'm sitting, I would say 2, then 3, then 1 in terms of my ranking.
For sure.
Oh, no doubt.
Yep.
Yeah, I think my personal ranking would be between 7.4, 7.6.
Yeah.
I think that range feels pretty decent to me.
Yep. You, Mikey?
This episode is setting us up for what's to come.
Yep. That's right.
Well, what's your score, though?
Oh, I already said it.
Did you?
I was 7. What did I say? 7.4 to
7.4. I guess that's what he was saying. Like his
7.6.
IMDb guess.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we got to make that segment a little clearer. But, anyways, categories. We're going to do favorite scenes, and we'll make these little jumpy here. We'll move this one quick. We're at 1:30. We'll be able to knock them out. In terms of favorite scenes, I will let you go first here, Mike.
Thank you, Oz.
Yes, sir.
Guys, something we really didn't hit on big was the Gale scene. Gale says to Ellie, hey, she's talking about Joel, and she's saying that he wronged her. And you could just see the brown. Bella is such a phenomenal actress. Yeah. Just her eyes are just bugging out, just like, what? And then Gale then goes on to tell her that he said, I saved her.
Yeah.
This is my Kreskin moment, guys. I'm jumping ahead, but Ellie's going to figure this out. She's smart. She's savvy. She's going to figure out what that meant from when he says, hey, I wronged her to I saved her. She's going to figure that out. She's going to go, okay, 2 and 2 together. That's why this is 4, and that's why Abby came here in the first place.
So Kreskin moment number 2 right there.
Kreskin moment number 2.
All right. Very nice. All right. You want to go next, Oz?
Yeah, sure. I'll take it. I think the one that really kind of stuck with me and hit me the hardest was Ellie returning home.
Yeah.
And, picking up the pieces and that feeling of, what is left behind when you lose someone you love, and trying to figure out what's going to fill that hole. Nothing, fully, of course, but you got to find a way to kind of patch it up and, find some kind of okayness with it. And currently she thinks revenge is going to fill that hole, and, I think we understand well enough that's, it might taste good for a second, but does it fill that hole? I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
So I'm going to go with that one. It's really strong. The music in it's really good. The use of sound.
I think that's the dead ringer. I think that one is the obvious choice.
Yep. I'll take that one.
Yep. Well, truthfully, that was going to be mine.
Yeah.
But I'll kind of...
For content's sake.
Oh, yeah. To be jumpy, I will say, actually, Seth standing up in the townhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was just a really kind of, it got your blood going for one thing. And it was also just a very kind of nice moment of, here's this side, here's this side, here's some reason to this one, here's some reason to this one. I think it just kind of showed the varying perspectives in a really, really obvious way. And I thought that it was kind of exciting and just something that kind of gave his character more depth, and I think a little bit of redemption too.
Yep, I agree there. Very good. On to our characters here. I'll start this one off. I'm going to go with Tommy. I like Tommy. I like his voice of reason here. He has plenty and as much reason to go after Abby as Ellie. It was his brother. He was my brother too. I loved him, But he's recognizing in this moment, and this is the thing that you want to hit Ellie over the head with. And I guess it's very hard to say that not being in the shoes. This is a character that's having an incredibly horrible experience, and she wants her revenge for it. But you want her to recognize that, this is not the path forward. And Tommy, with that voice of reason, breaking the cycle, choosing to be better, choosing the light. I think that's good. And he's filling those shoes. He's stepping up into them, and he's trying to be a better leader that isn't so gung ho. I think he sees the shortcomings of Joel and what led him to his, foil in the end, essentially, and is trying to learn from that. And I think that's a powerful thing about life in itself is, learning from these experiences. And, the only way you come out on the other end is choosing the high road, really, in a lot of ways.
Definitely that theme is established.
Yep. All right.
No doubt. Guys, my favorite character, again, I like Seth. Being an old man myself, I kind of like the idea that he's standing up to not only the council, to everyone out there. What was his name? Carlisle. Did he put him in his place? That was entertaining. I can't lie. I really like that he's like, hey, sit your ass down. You're so soft and so we have someone that gets killed. He's one of our leaders and we're not going to go, after him. Come on, wake up, guys. Yep. We have to do this.
Yep.
I think we all see that, or I see it. I think Seth's going to become a bigger character in this. I really do. He may be.
I can appreciate his fire.
He may be following down the road. I mean, he may be in Seattle, guys.
Yeah, I do like I did like what Carlisle stood up and said. He does get kicked in the face, but I think it is funny. He gets his own back in a way. He's like, they don't deserve our mercy. He's like, well, of course they don't. That's why it's mercy.
Yeah. He definitely was trying, wasn't he, Austin?
Yeah, no,
his heart was in the right place.
Yeah, that was funny. It was a good scene, and you do have to appreciate Seth's fire. He's not a morally pure character, as none of these characters are. But there are qualities that you are like. You like what he's done.
And he comes through at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Right or wrong.
Actions.
Right or wrong, he helps Ellie and Dina get out of there to do what they need to do.
Yep, action over words.
He calls in favors here and there and everywhere. And then, again, that really nice rifle that he hands her with the scope, he was telling her, hey, you're going to need this. You don't need that raggedy thing that you got. That I think it was an M1 that she had from Joel.
Yeah. All right, G, your favorite character.
I'm going to keep it easy. Dina.
Okay.
It's got to be Dina. I mean, Dina, every step of the way, she's right there for Ellie. She's the one who's visiting her in the hospital, we find out. She's the one who comes to her aid with the cookies, making sure she knows exactly what she needs to know. She goes with her to talk to Tommy. She's sitting right beside her in the courthouse. She's there every step of the way, goes and, checks out. Well, I guess she goes to her room at that one point and says, hey, well, here's the plan. Here's how we're going to do it. I know that you're going to go off by yourself. I'm coming with you. I mean, every step of the way, I think we're seeing how Ellie needs Dina and how Dina is stepping up to the plate and really, really kind of, I don't know, just establishing herself as someone incredibly important to everything going on.
No doubt. So, final thing here, themes and things. I'm going to go here. I'm going to just kind of roll off again, go myself. Actually, Griff, you get it. You get this one. We'll keep you on it.
I don't know if there's any other theme to touch. Well, there are a few of them. It's still revenge for me. I think it's the moral ambiguity. It is, hey, is it reasonable? Keep in mind how brutal, how barbaric it was what Abby did to Joel. Of course, Joel was a little bit morally ambiguous to begin with. Mm-hmm. Where do we all stand? You have Seth showing the side of, hey, let's go, let's defend our own. We're doing this for our fallen. This is the righteous, right thing to do. You have Carlisle preaching mercy. And we see this back and forth the whole episode,
Yep.
and we get arguments for both sides. I think that's the obvious one for me.
All right.
Guys, I don't know if this is a theme, but what I keep...
Maybe it's a thing. This is themes and things.
Well, let's go with that, because I see the symbolism. I said it earlier where, I'm kind of... I really like Seth's character now. I really like Bill's character in the first season. Although those are two totally different persons, I like that they've they've given us another Bill that I like.
They would get along on some levels.
They would definitely get along because they're both strike first, talk about it after. But also let's think about the watch. Again, we have the conflict with what would his daughter Sarah, the watch would mean something to her. It doesn't mean anything to Ellie. She threw it back in the box. She wanted the revolver. Also, you see the coat, the smell of that room. You see the bed missing. There was just so many. There's symbols throughout. That hammer might end up being a symbol down the road. But to me, to answer your question, Austin, the theme is symbols.
Yeah, symbols. The devices that are used throughout this episode are really good. And just what the meaning that is attached to these inanimate objects, and like what greater meaning they hold in it. My favorite theme and thing of this one is probably just the filling of boots, the stepping up to the plate, the,
That's a good one.
let's move forward. Let's pick up the pieces. Jesse coming into his role. I think he could have been an honorable.
The path ahead.
Yeah. The path ahead, exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself. But Jesse, honorable mention, probably character of this one, because he is stepping up to the role. He's fulfilling his duty, and he's there. And maybe we'll find out why he's sad. Maybe we won't. But I bet he's going to be there. I think he's going to hold his own and put up on his end. So I like seeing him step up to the plate. I like seeing Ellie shake hands with Seth to give him. Some of that back and appreciate what he did. That's just honorable in what you do there. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing her kind of come to it. And then, Dina stepping up to the plate, being this, this map, this kind of leader of the quest that is aimed.
Once we lose this many people, how do we reposition?
Yeah.
Who fills, like you said, who fills these shoes? Who fills these ones? It's what has to be done to continue moving ahead.
Yep. And Tommy as well, doing his thing, stepping up and taking on maybe a more prominent role with the town, stepping up for his family and choosing the high road for now, at least. He hasn't gone and, joined this journey, but he's also kind of facilitated or tried to help out Ellie in whatever way she can. And him kind of staying by his family and being that father figure. And he's trying, he's trying to figure out what the answer is, and he doesn't know. And that's why he's, seeked Gail's advice. But I think just generally stepping up to the plate, because we lost a lot in this episode before. But yeah, that'll do it. I'm looking forward to the episode ahead here. That was a very long one, an hour and 43 minutes.
Yeah,
wow.
We pushed it.
Yeah, we might have to figure a way to chop some seconds. We'll see how insane it sounds, but I think we did well. Fuck, man, if we got shit to say, we're going to say it,
I will say this. I did have one more question for my dad.
Yeah.
Well, with you being such a historian of ancient Egypt, I just wanted to hear if you had any other insight into what maybe the Egyptians would have done.
Oh my goodness, guys! I watch a lot of movies. I'm sorry, I have seen that before in movies. So, no, I do not have any. Austin, do something with this guy. That's ridiculous.
I was saving that one for you.
All right, there you have it, guys. Egyptian Mike on the mic. He's Kreskin. He's Dry Bones. What isn't he? The man of the hour, Mike. He's got himself a boom arm. He's ready to rock. He's loaded. All right, guys. Well, that'll be it. we're going to get out of here before we say anything we shouldn't.
Well, thank you for having us on, Austin. It was a great time as usual.
Austin, really enjoyed myself as well, other than this last 3-minute spiel. That was, it went the wrong direction, Austin.
Well, there you have it, folks. Thank you for listening if you stayed tuned through the whole thing. I know it was a long one, but it was a good one, and I won't let you tell me anything different. Looking forward to the episode tonight. We'll see you next week. All right, guys. Bye-bye.